Hey everyone, Shnickerman here, back with another video. So Bandai recently released this secondary wave of the Digimon Minifigures. So today, I'm going to take a look at the new figures and compare them to the old figures, so that way you guys can see the difference and make a decision whether you guys want to pick up these figures or not. I have a previous video about Digimon Minifigures, and this one I'm going to update my list. It's hard to have rarity and everything, but I will show the new Digimon figures. So the first one is the classic Digimon that started it all. You can see here we have the older Tyranimon on the left and the newer one on the right. So you can see that there's a lot more detail on the one on the right. It's matte in color rather than being this bright shiny color. This bright shiny red. You can see that it has kind of an off-white paints all the way underneath the tail. It has the stripes on the top. You can see there's some detail on the old one, but it just looks like a lot better of a figure overall. And I'm really enjoying the way that this Tyranimon looks. Number 2 is really an odd pairing, Betamon and Agumon. First, let's start off with the Agumons. You can see pretty clearly the one on the right is the new one. The face looks about the same in shape, but you can see that the claws are all painted in. The teeth have a lot more attention to detail. The eye is the classic Agumon eye, and it just looks like a really nice figure. The heads are different, obviously, with no writing on the back. Wow, this Agumon just looks perfect. Next, we have an odd pairing. I'm not exactly sure why they chose Betamon since it came out in 2000 rather than in the 90s. Just a nice matte finish on this one as well. Changed the color of the mohawk. But again, the original was pretty good, so not too many differences here, just differences in color palette. But I do think I prefer the new Betamon as well. Next up we got Greymon. You can see the older figure, pretty good amount of detail, but the toe claws are not painted. The eyes have even more detailed paint, and the tail has the striping on the back in the new one, and the toes underneath as well. Just a nice slight upgrade here. The next one is another bit of a chibi upgrade, but at the same time the old one on the left, a really weird pose for Vmon, and its proportions are a bit off. I do actually like the updated one a bit more. He's got his kind of feisty pose, and overall it just looks more like Vmon. Paint jobs are about the same. Everything on the original wasn't too bad, just completely different sculpt. Next one, we have Metal Greymon Blue. We have two comparisons. So this is the original Metal Greymon here. You can see details about the same. It's a little bit smaller, which is kind of interesting, but the pose is pretty much identical. You can see more detail in the arm and these sculpted on sections here that weren't painted in before, back of the tail, etc. underneath. What's interesting about this one is there was also the skateboard figure, which has a similar pose but not exact, and this was the only way to get the blue Metal Greymon from before. You can see that they're not identical, but pretty similar. But really happy to add this one to the collection to go along with the normal Metal Greymon. Now for the last figure, I think my least favorite out of the set, we have Gilmon. You can see that the new one is very chibi, very weird proportions. I like the old figure. I wish it just had more detail. The new one, I enjoy the detail, but just not a big fan of the sculpt. But look at the details on the bottom of the feet, different colored paint, even on the back. Really nice figure, just not really for me. Okay, so now as we take a look at the Gilmon, you can see a high amount of detail here on the sculpt, and it's more of a chibi style figure. And if you compare that to the old Gilmon, you see more of a full body but more proportion sized figure. The paint job and everything on these new ones are really good. White paint is everywhere with only minor imperfections. Nice shape there. So overall, I do like the new figure. However, I'm a bigger fan of the actual proportions of the Digimon. So the next one is a little bit harder to see the differences, but this is the new Digimon. You can see the color is a little bit glossy, but attention to detail here is really high. Now this is compared to the old. You can see the new one is a little bit taller for some reason. Paint is more consistent, but you can see the little buckle on his knee now, the buckles on his chest. Everything is just more detailed in general. So that's a really, really nice upgrade if you do ask my opinion. And even the head symbol as well. Next for Miraman might be a little bit difficult to know which is which. The one on the left is the new and the right is the old. You can see that the teeth are drawn in, the eyes are very similar, but the paint is a bit different depending on the style. They wanted the 2 color flames rather than the one. One thing I am seeing on my new one that's a little bit annoying is you can see this lack of paint here at the feet. And what else is interesting is that the old ones used to have the information that showed what year they were from, which is basically taken off on the new ones. So it's a completely different mold that they appear to use. And the next we have Pneumomon. So the one on the left is the new one. You can see it's much smaller in size, color is more vivid, detail is much better. It's got a glossy finish. See all the detail around his teeth. Whereas on this old one, most of the detail is there, but it's just a matte finish. So this one isn't too different as well, but I do appreciate the new one, and the fact that he's smaller I think is a little bit better in scale with some of the other Digimon figures. Monsiemon is another one that's not too different. You can see the main difference is the painted in claws on the left hand side one, so that's definitely the new one. It's slightly bigger in size. You can see the color varies a little bit as well. No longer is the writing on the top of the head. Zipper is covered in the back. So this is a nice upgrade as well. Again, I think they made him a little bit bigger because Monsiemon is a pretty big Digimon. So that's cool as well. Alright, so the next one is pretty substantial difference again. On the left hand side you see the old Monsiemon. Really cool figure, really well done for the old style. 2 colors of paint, maybe 3. The new one, again, really, really shiny, really good attention to detail. They got the red on there with the silver and the black as well. Really huge, huge figure, again, kind of relevant to the size of Monsiemon. I believe these ones also came out in Japan previously, but never released in North America. And last but not least for this set, we have Galantmon / Dukemon. You can see again, chibi style, similar in style to the Gilmon. The new one is much smaller, but attention to detail is just a little bit better. The white is not shiny as well, only the gold and silver and everything on it is. So I do think that that looks pretty dang good. Like I said, though, I'm not a big fan of the chibi proportions, but the old one as well needs to be a little bit different, but do think that this is a really good figure for the collection to have. And lastly, you can see the actual cages themselves do stack. They're not super tight, but you can put them together and open up the actual cages and put Digimon inside of them, which is just really cool. So there's some pretty cool display options with this as well. Thanks everyone for watching. Hopefully now you can see what the difference between these Digimon figures are and decide whether you think they're cool to pick up. Be sure to check out, I think eBay at this point is your only option to pick it up if you like these figures. And until the next video, peace out everyone.